Hello everybody and welcome back to another tutorial series for Hangar Control. In this case we are back with our Baron G58 from Black Square and we are going to start going through binding buttons. In the previous video we went through a bunch of axis bindings and some cool segmenting that you can do with the axis and different way to use axis. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you check out the previous video. But today we're going to get into binding physical buttons, switches, toggles, encoders, etc. and show some of the complex methods that you can use to benefit your simulation setup. One app designed to do it all. Hangar Control brings everything together. Control bindings, hardware configuration, mod and profile management, application launching, add-ons, config files, and more, all managed from a single application. Mods Hangar goes beyond just mods and add-ons. It manages profiles, config files, text files, backups, snapshots, and helps keep your community folders clean and organized. Application Hangar launches your entire sim stack with a single click. Your Stream Decks are fully controlled through the Hangar Control plugin, while all of your other Stream Deck plugins remain active and available. Built by a simmer for simmers, Hangar Control adds new features and hardware support every week based on community feedback. It's a one-time purchase with lifetime updates, no subscriptions. You can try it for free for 5 days with no restrictions at overkillsimulations.com. Just create an account, head to your account page, download the latest version, and get started. And if you're looking for in-depth Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft tutorials, check out my Patreon site. Links to Hangar Control and Patreon are down in the description below. Okay, folks, so as always, if you guys are interested in giving Hangar Control a shot, be sure to go to overkillsimulations.com, create your account first, whether you want to purchase it outright and support my work, or if you want to give the 5-day trial a go. Make sure that you still create your account first, then hit the red account button, and then you can download Hangar Control or purchase. Whether you are purchasing or trial, you must create your account first or you will get an error. Okay, so as I said, today we're going to get into binding buttons, and we're going to go through the Bravo throttle quadrant using binding many of the switches that you guys see down below. And then we are also going to probably work with the sim panel ignition panel that I've been really impressed with over the last few days as well. We'll be adding that to the mix and binding all of our ignition configuration down below there as well. So I hope you guys are excited for this video. Let's go ahead and dive in. Alright folks, so let's dive into it. We're going to start out by working with our Bravo throttle quadrant and starting to set up some of the commands here in the Baron 58. And we will add new hardware as needed, but today we're going to be focused primarily on the Bravo. So with that in mind, let's get started. So we obviously want to start our service to make sure that we can test any commands without the service started. Anything you push, press, etc. will not do a damn thing in the simulator. And let's open it up. So what we're going to focus on here is we're going to sort of take a gander at a few of these rocker switches and figure out how to best use them, because we obviously have more switches down below than we do up above. And I think that's kind of the key point here to why we have softwares like Hangar Control. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of this in a more tactical fashion, if you will. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rocker switches on the Bravo that we can take advantage of. But we have a bunch more down here that we're going to need to address. So let's see here. Let's do this. And let's bring that up there, and let's start zooming in. There we go. And bring it to say there. That'll work. Okay. So, battery alternators we can probably put on the same switch just to make things, you know, it's not going to be realistic, but it makes things a bit easier. And then when you think about it, your beacon light and your nav lights, we can probably throw on the same one. Our landing lights and maybe our strobe lights, again, not quite realistic in that particular scenario, but you guys can get what I'm getting at. And then taxi lights, and if you wanted you could do these. So we're going to see how we can best utilize all this, because we still obviously have to think about the avionics master as well. So let's start playing around with some of this, and maybe we'll do something even more crazy. So the first step here is let's take our first switch and let's open up the unified binding window. The unified binding window is going to be a window that you are going to see across multiple sections of this software. Pretty much any time that you go to bind a button, this window likely is going to be what you see. Now, it is extremely powerful. We have conditional operations. We have single actions, sequences, steps, toggles. We can set your command type, DCS command. We can set flags. We can clear flags. We can toggle, do multi-conditions, HC variables, which we'll get into much later, VJoy button and axis, a reverse thrust command, which again we'll talk about in a later video. If you guys haven't checked that out and you're interested, there is a reverse thrust video on my channel for Hangar Control that will go over that feature. So in our case, we're going to want SimConnect. And here I'm going to right click here and I want to set as default, because this is what we're going to be working with for the remainder of this video. I don't want to keep having to select SimConnect every time I come back in here. We have advanced options down here that again we will get to at a much later time when we get into, well, not much later, but at a later time when we get into the advanced configuration options. So let's start this show. We want a single action. Actually, hold. We have another set. We can also do the press type. Single press means I tap it and I let it go. Double tap, 2 quick presses in succession. Tap, tap. Long press, hold the button for 1 second or more. Press and hold. Let go. Trigger on release. This is great for, again, rocker switches. Release, hold continuous action. This can be more for things like, an example would be like machine guns in DCS world, right? Something that you need to continuously repeat. So, the cool thing is many of these can be combined. We can combine a single press with a long press. We can combine a single press with a double tap with a long press, and even a release, although that's going to get weird. Okay, so you can combine a lot of these. So for this particular button, we're just going to work with a single press for right now. And then from here, it gets pretty simple. You guys have seen a window that looks like this before in the previous video, but let's start with our battery. And we just want master battery on in this case. We're going to hit OK. We save. You can see the orange highlight indicating the button is now bound, and there she is. So now let's hit the down position. Go back to browse events. And let's do master battery off. And hit save. Okay. Now, like I said, to save some time, and to save a couple of buttons here, if we were to do left and right alternator, okay, and then the avionics master, that doesn't leave us much for when it comes to the realm of lights, or anything else for that matter. So, I'm going to actually add the left and right alternator to this. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to come back in here, and this is where you guys are going to see the action change. We're going to change this from a single action to a sequence. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to add step, SimConnect, edit, browse, master battery on. Okay. Then we're going to come in here and we're going to add another step. SimConnect. Browse again. And alternator. And I think this one, alternator on, will trigger both, if I'm not mistaken. So now when we save that, boom, there we go. Now let's bind that off position again. Change this again to a sequence. Add step. SimConnect. Edit. Browse. And we'll switch alternator off, have it go in the reverse. Add step again. SimConnect. Edit. And change to battery. And there we go. And the nice thing is that you can see that it's bound to a sequence by simply mousing over it. Now, the reason why we don't give a summary is because those summaries can get rather massive, but it is something I'm thinking about editing in. But you can see it already replaced what was single step that was there before, and simply clicking into the button, you get a full breakdown. Now, the other thing you can do if you want is you can see a default pause is put in here of 100 milliseconds. That's just to make sure that there's enough time that actually the simulator registers all commands at once. If you don't have any kind of pause in there, what can sometimes happen is, especially when you get into longer sequences, is you might find that some of your strokes or commands get lost and don't exactly happen consistently. And that's usually what the cause is. For example, that's very common in DCS World. If you try to make this interval too small in DCS World, I have often found that some of your commands may not fire. Add that pause in there and everything works as expected. And again, that's 100 milliseconds, guys. So that's less than 1,000th of a second. Okay, or that is 1,000th of a second. So here we go. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's keep moving here. So now we've got batteries and alternators. Let's go ahead and hit this next one on the avionics master. We're going to leave that as a single press or single action. Avionics master. Now, let's use the set for this one. You can see there's a toggle. There's avionics master switch, right? So what we want is usually avionics master switch or avionics master set will work. You down here you have a value, okay? Now we can set this value to 1, which is usually going to be on. Ignore this window at this point. This is primarily for LVARs, but what we're interested in is that parameter. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. You can see the value populates there. Save. Flip it up. Oh, wrong switch. There we go. When I hit down, nothing happens. Now what we can do too is just like we did before in the previous video with the axis, is we can actually just copy this. Highlight it. Control C. Come back to your next command. Highlight. Paste. And this time we're going to set it to 0. And then when we flip that switch back up and then back down again. And to show you what I mean, if we were to change this to 1 as well, you can see that both directions now do the same thing. And in 99.999% of the time, especially with what is called a K event or a SimConnect event, 0 and 1 are the only variables you will use, on and off. So save. And there we go. Okay, so now we've got our primary electrical systems here that are already set and ready to roll. So now let's go ahead and hit our lights. We're going to do another sequence for this one. So we're going to start with our nav light and our beacon light. Let's get those two bound over here. So I'm just going to go for nav underscore lights, and there we go. Lights on. Although, let's actually just go ahead and change that now and get ahead. I'm going to copy that. Go to sequence, add step, SimConnect. Oh, looks like we have to edit it anyway. But we can drop it in there, save. And then we're going to add a step, SimConnect, edit, and this time we're going to look for beacon. There it is. Give it a quick test. Boom. Now let's test, get that down position set as well. Sequence again. And this time we can just do beacon lights off. Again, do things in the reverse. You don't have to. We're just doing that because it was convenient. Nav, lights, off. There we go. Easy peasy. So next, let's go ahead and use one for the taxi light. We'll do this one as a single press. And if memory serves, we're going to cheat a little bit because I do believe it is taxi. Oops, I think I hit something I didn't want to hit. Taxi, lights, on. There it is. Taxi lights off. And now let's grab this one and let's do the landing lights. And guess what? There they go. And once you start doing this a lot like I have, a lot of these basic commands become very easy and you become very, very quick at this. All right, so we've got our taxi lights, we've got our landing lights, we've got our beacon lights, we've got our nav lights. I think the last one is up. Oh, nope. This one go over here, and that's going to be strobe light. I do recommend that guy sit by itself. And again, I believe it is the same thing. Strobe lights on. I'm just going to copy this one. Oh, it is not. Let's go find out what it is. I don't think it might be just strobes. Let me try my wizardry one more time and see if I'm right. Haha, gotcha. So it's strobes. Strobes off and save. Okay, so now by combining all of those into a sequence and using them in a manner that, for the most part, should make pretty good sense, we've now been able to save a switch even for anything else we want. For example, if we wanted to bind that to the prop sync. Okay, so let's go ahead and now grab some of the rest of this. And actually, what I think I'm going to bind this one to is the parking brake. That's a real big one. So I'm going to come up over here, and we're just going to go to, I believe it is park brakes set. Remember what I told you, 1 and 0, right? So 1, save. That should pull the park brake. It did not. So is it park brakes or park brake? Now let's go find it. I tried twice. I was wrong. So let's see what it is. Ah, it's parking brake set. Okay, no worries there. So, same thing, parking brake set. Again, we're going to leave that as 1. I'm going to copy it this time. And this time when we flip the switch, there she goes. Come down in here, paste that previous command, and you guys guessed it, 0. Now, anytime you are using a toggle, if it literally says toggle in the name, you do not need to set a variable. If it says on or off, like you guys saw before, you do not need to use a variable. Okay, you don't need to use that parameter. It is only if you are using any item that ends with the word set. Because what it is saying is, okay, here is the item, parking brakes. Set means, what do you, the end user, what do you want me to do with that? What variable would you like me to set? Okay, see what I did there? Set. Oh, boom. Okay, so now let's move to the trim wheel. So we're going to click forward, and we're just going to look for trim. And here we're going to look for elevator trim. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do elevator percent, which I don't recommend, or you can do the trim position, which is a variable, which allows you to adjust how fast or slow that variable changes, or you're able to do the trim up, trim down. Trim up and trim down is a set speed that you will not be able to edit. You will not be able to change how fast it works. So let me show you. There's the trim down. Let's make sure I have it bound to the right direction. Now that trim's actually still cooking. That's turning and burning, right? But if you wanted to take that even further, we could go back in here and find that trim again. Where are you? There we go. Elevator trim position, the radians. Percent will literally do what percentage of trim do you want to set to. So that's helpful for a key bind. If you wanted to bind a specific trim amount or a trim position, to a button. This one here, when we select here and we go to OK, we'll bring up this window. You'll see that it says LVAR configuration, but it also works for AVARs and SIMVARs, etc. I want to increment. I want to increase the value of that particular trim position. And we want to increase it by how much? For example, if I hit save and close at 1 and hit save. Okay, it's going the other direction now, so we actually want decrement, so let's fix that too. So to fix that, we're just going to go down to the edit LVAR again. Instead of increment, we're going to decrement. And then when we save all, and now we should see trim nose down. And there it goes. But the other thing that we can do here is if we go back into edit LVAR, is we have more control over how far it goes. So now let's increase that to 5. And you can see the reaction is now significantly faster. Okay. Now, that is a lot of trim. I would not recommend doing that. But we should also be able to do some decimals. So you have a lot more control by using this particular method. But if you want to just keep it simple trim, then again, you can just go elevator trim down. And from here, trim up. And you get the default behavior. All right, so next up, let's just keep working through some of these just for more or less visualization here. Let's get our gear handle. So we're going to do gear down. Let's get this one here. And we'll do gear up. And even when on the ground, we can test that. Perfect. And finally, the last piece here is the actual flap switch. So, as we were talking in the previous video, for those who watched the access portion, if we want to do flaps by button, then what we actually want is flaps increase and decrease. Obviously, increase is going to be bringing the flaps down. We can copy that. And decrease will bring the flaps up. There we go. And that leaves us to the real big one here, and that is the autopilot selector. That we are going to wait for the next video, as it will involve quite a bit more in order to set this up. Meaning that you guys are going to see not only how to bind the autopilot by what variables to use, but you'll also be able to see the use of conditions. Okay, we are going to set up a bunch of conditions that state when one of these modes is set, the encoder does XYZ. Okay, so stay tuned for that video. That will be coming out right after this one. I hope you're all enjoying the tutorial series. Please consider giving Hangar Control a shot. And as always, above everything else, stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you in the next one.